She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. I want to break it into pieces and love all of them.
It's a tragic romance like Romeo and Juliet.
Big hair, big eyeshadow, like...
I want it to be I love you.
He would give me cards that said, I like you, go Browns.
That man's creepy, period.
During band camp season.
I have zero stories of that. We're all singing today.
Are we adopting some sort of weird, like NPR voice or something? We're going to be all...
On today's episode, friends.
On Book Besties.
I'm told when I talk that way, it's disconcerting to others. So maybe not.
I concur. So...
it's just I'm extra.
So guess what I did this week?
Well, I know.
Well, I found my Kindle.
Oh, okay. I was like, we were talking about the dance. But that's been missing a while.
Yes. So my Kindle has been missing for a while. I have a Kindle Paperwhite.
Like a long while. Where was it?
It's been missing for a really long time. It was on my bookshelf with all my other books.
I mean, technically it is a book. So valid location.
Why would it be where it was supposed to be, right? But I needed it because we have a few books coming up that I own on ebook.
Yeah.
So But also this week, I hosted a middle school dance.
Yeah, no, I don't miss those. Why would you do that?
Well, my students, I'm the gifted teacher at my school, and my students hosted the dance as a fundraiser for our local animal shelter, and they raised over $1,600, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of the kids haven't had anything to do for a few years.
Right.
So they wanted to do the things.
Did they go crazy?
They did. So it definitely started an awkward middle school dance. I was having to push people into the gym, standing right in the doorway. And so I started going, go be awkward somewhere else. Go further into the gym. Go be awkward further into the gym. But by the end of the night,
inside, not outside.
Right. But by the end of the night, everyone was having a great time. The DJ played Backstreet Boys and the Macarena, and I was like, why the hell do my students
flashbacks
know?
Now? Kids love it.
Well, yeah, it's a combination of TikTok and the DJ was like, well, their parents are millennials, and I was like, oh, that's a good point.
My girls know the electric slide because of elementary school gym.
Well, how do you not know the electric slide? That's just everybody knows it. But yeah, I mean, it was a good time. I was really proud of the kids. They did the things. I'm a little sore today. I've really
You've had a hard week. You've been going hard all week.
Yeah, I have. I have issues.
Was there crying? Because if there's no crying, it doesn't count as middle school.
Oh, yeah, there were definitely kids crying, for sure.
Yep, because there's at least one awkward breakup at a middle school dance.
There were a few kids crying, and there was a boy who... He was working up the courage all week to ask this girl to dance with him. He brought her a heart-shaped box of chocolate.
Aww.
And she was so uncomfortable that she had an anxiety attack. Oh, yeah.
My week was not that fun.
The boy was really sweet, though. I have to say that. He's a sweet boy.
We're still in the middle of dealing with strike. They are on a rolling 24-hour contingent with Marathon. Neither side can agree. And then, last night, the city of Texas City lost power, taking down every plant that Matt worked. That's a part of Matt's work. So let's add insult to injury to what's going on right now out there.
Right. Now, are they officially striking, or...
So
still in negotiations?
So Marathon has offered their last best offer, and the union now has to decide what they want to do. If they're going to strike or if they're going to take it. So they have to have all these meetings with all the union members, and everybody votes, and it's a whole democratic process that takes longer than it should.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, we got Girl Scout cookies in. We can start selling those next week.
Don't be shamelessly plugging your Girl Scout cookies on our podcast.
Okay. I don't have Girl Scout cookies. I lied.
You don't see me talking about the hams my sons are selling for Easter for Cub Scouts.
No, you would never talk about the hams the boys are selling for Cub Scouts.
Never. I would never talk about the hams, the Smithfield hams. #
But they're selling.
But they're selling for $30, between 9 and 10 pounds a ham.
Right, and we don't start selling Girl Scout cookies next Saturday. My next Saturday, not the podcast's next Saturday.
We're a little ahead of where we normally are at this point.
Word. So I will be already heavy into cookie season, which is not fun, but whatever. It's a mom's job to make it easier for the child, right?
I feel like I've gained a little bit of weight lately, and I'm not feeling so great about that, but I definitely have ordered like $50 in Girl Scout cookies already.
It's hard not to. They're freaking fantastic.
Well, I freeze them, and I usually...
Same.
It takes me a few months to eat them, but like
Same.
I probably need to stop eating my feelings after work.
I approve. Okay. I do the same. So this week...
So let's talk about this book. So this week is our last week of romantic books for February. And listen, when I picked this book again... So I read this book when we read it for our book club forever ago. And here's the thing. I remember the book being romantic. I remember them being so sweet with each other. And I remember these words that were like, right to my soul.
Right.
I forgot
the depressing part.
How rough this book actually is. So when I picked this book
depressing.
For Romance Month, it probably wasn't the best choice. But we're talking about Eleanor and Park.
It's the most realistic one, I think, though, out of all of our romance books.
Banging an escort until you get engaged is realistic?
No. I have zero stories of that, but I've heard several stories like this. I'm sober, gang. This is just me not being able to talk.
So this book won a Prince Honor Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature from ALA, and it is by Rainbow Rowell. It is our second book we've covered of hers on the pod.
We're a big fan of.
We're huge fans. So I have the special edition of this book, which includes fan art. So I'd just like to take a minute to show some of that off if you are watching us on YouTube. This one's my favorite here. I mean, that is just
it's just
gorgeous.
Good.
So gorgeous.
So great.
And then here's one. I honestly think this one looks a lot like Rainbow Rowell if you've ever seen a picture of her.
Yeah.
It does. This one here. And so that's some fan art. When we read Fangirl, I also showed off the special edition of that, which included fan art. Rainbow Rowell really loves her fans, and she does have special editions of all of her books, and I think that's really cool.
It is. It's
so
awesome.
Synopsis?
Yes, please.
All right. Eleanor is new to school. She makes her grand entrance on Park's bus one morning, looking completely out of place with her big red hair, mismatched clothes, and her completely awkward search for a seat. Park stupidly makes space for her next to him, even though others are watching and he really shouldn't. But that one choice starts a series of events where Park begins to see Eleanor not as beautiful, but as art. And Eleanor begins to see Park as the safe space she's never had. This book explores first love, family trauma, and the dynamics of being a high school student in 1986. It is not a traditional romance story, but it is one that makes you feel.
And it talks about being a biracial couple in the 80s.
Yeah, and not just because Eleanor and Park are a biracial couple, but his parents are as well.
Right.
His dad is...
God, I love his parents.
Like, Park is actually biracial. He's Vietnamese American, I think is...
I thought Korean.
Korean, you're right.
Korean.
Excuse me, I was thinking of the love quotient again. Mm-hmm. They were Vietnamese. Yeah. I
mean, that book's always on your mind, isn't it?
Well, I just listened to the episode today, so...
Okay, that's a valid reasoning.
It's stuck in my head. I also returned the book to the library today. Right. Please use your local libraries. We at Book Besties support our local libraries. I just checked out 2 books from there, and James checked out 2 graphic novels and has already devoured most of one and was laughing the entire time. So there you go. He has a new favorite series.
That's a W.
That kid loves graphic novels. All All right, so can we jump into the questions? What do you think?
Please.
All right.
I'd like that.
So this was your first time reading this book, but it was not your first Rainbow Rowell because we've read Fangirl for the pod.
Right.
How do you think this book compares to Fangirl?
You know, they're both love stories, but they're so different.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, even though I know they're written by the same author, it really feels like it's written by two different people.
Oh, you think so? I don't agree. I feel like the two of them feel so more similar than like her Simon Snow series that she's got going on, which is like, where the hell did that come from?
I mean, I'm not talking like the love aspect, but like the way the story's broken down, the way the story's told. Fangirl feels like you're traveling through the time with them a little bit at a quicker pace, right? Things are happening faster in Fangirl.
Because it's a school year. Well, I mean, this is a school year too.
But it feels, and I'm not saying slow in a bad way, but it feels like it's just progresses slower. Like it's a slow burn love, right? They slowly fall in love. They slowly understand the problems of their lives. Like,
I would say Levi and Kath are also a slow burn. I mean,
right, but it wasn't the primary focus in that book, I don't feel like.
I guess it wasn't the primary focus. It was more about Kath finding who she was. But I don't know. I feel like this book definitely feels like a Rainbow Rowell. Her foray into this fantasy world of Simon Snow is weird to me. That doesn't feel like Rainbow Rowell.
Well, I haven't read those, but I feel like these books feel like cousins, not siblings. Does that make sense?
I do agree that I think that makes sense to me.
That makes sense?
Yeah, but
listeners understand what I'm talking about. They're cousin books.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Brother cousins, they're just cousins.
But I think it's more, I don't think it's the writing, I think it's the tone.
And it could be that too. I mean,
like Kath and Eleanor are both broken.
Right,
Park and oh gosh, I just forgot the name of her boyfriend and what is Kath's boyfriend's name? Levi. They're both broken.
But I more relate to Eleanor than I do Kath. Mm-hmm. So I put myself more into this book than I feel like I can put myself into the other book. Mm-hmm. So that also makes it different for me as well.
Right. I mean, I feel like I relate to both characters for different reasons. I don't know. I agree with you that it could be more like they're cousins and less like they're siblings. Or they're like siblings.
Which one was written first?
I think this one was. Or they're siblings like the way my brothers are, my sons are siblings and they don't look anything alike, but they definitely have the same parents.
I mean, look at mine too.
But yours resemble each other enough. There are times, like right now with your hair like that, I think, even though I know Liv is a blonde, I feel like...
Because she's got my nose. She's got my nose. That girl's got my nose.
So this was 2013. So I'm pretty sure this one was first.
Okay.
But
that kind of makes sense. You can see how, if I'm taking what I know about Fangirl and my memory of reading that in this, you can definitely see how her writing has matured.
That actually, it says Fangirl was published in 2013 also. So when the
that doesn't make sense.
She published 2 books in 1 year. No, she couldn't.
No.
We'll
put it in the notes.
Yeah, fuck it.
We'll put it in notes. But no, I feel like I get they're both rainbow, but
yes, this one
feels more like more personal. This one feels more autobiographical.
I don't know that Rainbow Rowell had this kind of trauma in her life, and I'm so sorry if she did. But when I think of Eleanor, I see Rainbow Rowell.
It just feels
maybe brighter red hair than what she has. But.
It just feels more personal the way this one's written. You know?
Yeah. They're definitely both set in the same city.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you? What did you think? Are they book cousins?
Yeah, I can agree with that. This one was written in 2012. I looked it up. It is her first book.
I'm trademarking that, by the way. Book cousins.
I like it. We need to trademark Book Besties before somebody comes up and tries to snatch it.
I'll fucking punch him in the face.
This book is not a typical romance like the others that we've read this month. Do you still think it's romantic? And did you enjoy reading them fall in love?
It is romantic. And it's a tragic romance like Romeo and Juliet. Oh. Well, you know what I mean? It's not the whole where families, I mean, it is family. It is Romeo and Juliet adjacent, right? Like family keeping them apart, whole thing. But there's such a sadness to Eleanor that just radiates off the page.
Yeah.
And that kind of dampers and mutes the love story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think the first time I read it, I was sucked more into the love story. And this time when I read it as a more adult, I was
more like, grown.
I was like, oh, wow. This is
but it is.
Well, and I was reading it through the filter of just having read 3 books in a row that were
exactly. Books. And I feel like if I read this without those backers, it might be completely different.
Well, and something that we've talked about all month, I don't typically read romance novels. So for me, this is more what I read.
Right.
People that really fall for each other and need each other and save each other.
But I mean, you fall in love with them at the same time.
Oh yeah, you do.
You slowly fall in love with Eleanor the way Park falls in love with her, and you slowly fall in love with Park the way Eleanor falls in love with him. It is just.
And I mean, I know I'm skipping ahead to the end of the book, but when they're in the truck together,
fuck me, it hurt.
And they,
yep.
They essentially, we can infer that they have sex at the end of the book.
It's insinuated.
And when they do that, you feel like this
is the end.
That's it. Like they've reached the point in that relationship, and this is what's going to be the end for them.
Their mother story's over, man.
It's really sad.
It's heartbreaking.
And actually, and I'll link this in the notes. I read, it wasn't an article. I'm sorry. I won't be able to link this in the notes because this is in the special edition. There's an interview in here with Rainbow Rowell in the special edition copy, and she's asked if she'll write a sequel for this, and what she says is that she's tried several times to write a sequel to Eleanor and Park, but the book blew up.
You just can't.
And she said she would never be able to write a story that would make everyone happy with where she takes the characters, and so she's kind of just decided to leave it alone because the characters are like beloved. Like there's a whole fandom behind Eleanor and Park.
And what did John Green had a TikTok the other day that said he does not believe once those characters are out there, his characters no longer belong to him. They belong to the fans. And that's what she's pretty much saying. These guys belong to you guys now.
Right. And actually, that's a part of one of the things we'll talk about when we talk about The Fault in Our Stars, because that theory actually comes up in The Fault in Our Stars. So we'll talk more about that then. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you've reached that point where the story is clearly over for them. And I honestly appreciate that it's not a happy ending story.
Well, and
they're high schoolers, you know?
High schoolers. And I mean, she leaves the ending open-ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're jumping ahead, but I mean, that postcard, we don't know what's on it. Period.
Ooh, that's one of my questions. So we'll come back to that.
We'll get to it. But it's just open-ended.
But I feel like in a lot of ways that's more like that is in and of itself makes it the happy ending. What Eleanor needed was not to be with Park forever and ever and ever.
But she needed to know he was still out there.
Right. She needed safety and a home.
Grown-ups that actually cared for her.
And so to me, the love story is them finding each other and them saving each other. And they did that. They did.
But
and Eleanor saves Park too, because Park actually learns to stand up for himself.
He learns who he is.
Yeah, he does.
When he's with her.
Yeah.
And I really expected his dad to just jump in at some point and be like, okay, enough's enough. I know this family. We're taking care of this girl. But he never did.
Well, he does have that conversation with Eleanor in the driveway where he tells her.
Different.
Right. Yeah. All right. We pretty quickly learn that Eleanor's home life is awful.
Oh,
She was kicked out by her stepdad for an entire year and is just now back with her family. As the book goes on, we get even more glimpses at the trauma she's experiencing at home. How did you respond to these revelations?
Not great. Not great.
I
was lots of tears. First, I'm really
anxiety meds.
Yeah. I was really pissed at the mom's best friend for not calling CPS.
Yeah.
As soon, you know what I mean? I know it's the 80s and they didn't do that back then and you minded your own business, but obviously this child got kicked out for being herself and trying to protect her siblings. And you're just going to take care of her and let her sleep on your couch until her evil stepfather just calms down? That's bullshit.
And we don't know for sure, but I kind of suspect that the whole reason that Eleanor's mom came back to get her wasn't because she wanted to take her back or she felt it was a safe space. I think
she was afraid that they were going to call CPS.
Mm-hmm. Or her friends were like, "You need to get her out of here." Like
I'm kicking her out myself.
Right.
I just, I don't know. And it's always a crap situation when the oldest child becomes the adult for the other siblings.
But it happens so frequently.
It so happens so much. But we're getting to a point where there are so many siblings that know to tell trusted grown-ups. I mean, I've heard stories of kids just telling on adults at school, you know?
Yeah.
Like, hey, my uncle touched my brother. Help me. Right?
Well, and Eleanor's not afraid to report. She calls the police because she hears gunshots. Like, she's not afraid to report. And so...
She's afraid what's going to happen to her siblings, though, if she gets kicked out again.
Yeah, and I think it's self-preservation as well because, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, there's some shady shit that's happening that I think she was worried if she stepped too far out of line, she would be violated, essentially.
Right. That man's creepy, period. Bottom line.
Yeah.
What was the other part of your question? I'm yapping.
It was just how do you respond to these revelations? Like, how did you feel?
Oh, like crap.
Oh, yeah.
It's bullshit.
This book is like feel good and trauma at the same time.
It's like chocolate ice cream with pickle ice cream. It's going to be disgusting and awesome at the same time.
But you know what? To me, that's what makes it more authentic because I feel like if you are somebody like Eleanor, you are looking for someone like Park. You're looking for a family that
loves you,
has their shit together, and even if it's only on the outside. And
I mean, none of us.
They include you. You know, they include you.
And I mean, just word less chaotic,
right? And Park's mom isn't like okay with Eleanor being over all the time initially, and then she sees their family in the grocery store at Christmas,
and then it clicks for her.
It clicks with her. Oh,
well, and and I think that's the great thing about books like this. When you're in situations like this, like Park's mother related to Eleanor, right? She saw that Eleanor was struggling. She saw what was going on just in that 5 minutes because of her life. Us as readers, if you've had any trauma, you instantly flash back and can relate. Right. So it's
I feel like this is a good segue to something you wanted to talk about because you wanted to talk about Eleanor's clothes.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why Park's mom doesn't like her is because Park's mom is a cosmetologist and an Avon lady in the 80s.
She loves being called being a beautician.
So you have to think big hair, big eyeshadow.
Blue, I did my eyes just color just for her.
Nice. So you have to think about the fact that what she's looking for is someone, and the way that she dresses as well. She's looking for someone that looks like her, and not necessarily like exactly like her, but she wants her son to be with somebody more like Tina, who gets her hair done and wears the nice clothes, and whatever. So let's talk about Eleanor's to her. Yeah. So let's talk about Eleanor's clothes for a minute.
At first, as a reader, you think it's like a fashion choice.
Yeah, I think she's a little weird. Like she just maybe wants to be weird.
Like, I wore a men's fedora for all of my freshman year of high school, mostly.
I wore grandpa shirts like most of college. Like a legit grandpa shirts.
I wore the fedora with overalls. I wore the fedora with plaid shirts because plaid shirts were really hip in the late 90s. I wore the fedora
To be
everywhere.
fair, so were fedoras.
But not the way I was doing it. I will send you pictures. You know what? I will have my mom send it to me, and I will put it in the stories of this episode.
Oh, gosh.
But I found that fedora at a, not Goodwill, Salvation Army when I was shopping with my grandmother. Because Arvina always let us go wild at Salvo because everything's a quarter. But I got mocked relentlessly.
Yeah.
Still wore it though. I had to be freaking, I was determined not to
But circling back to Eleanor.
Sorry.
Not to derail your train of thought about your fedora, but
I missed that thing. Anyways.
Oh gosh, don't bring it back. Eleanor's clothes, she like sticks like
safety pins,
Christmas decorations on stuff, and you think it's because she's like being like weird, like maybe she's just, I mean, like I had a student like my third year teaching that wore a tail, like
right,
a cat's
but
tail.
that's like a style. That's like a style. That's like an emo aesthetic, though.
It's fucking weird. But anyway,
but I think Eleanor wore the clothes she wore the way she wore them, hoping somebody would see her.
So that could be part of it, but we actually do learn that like her clothes had holes in them and things.
Right.
And so she was hiding the fact
holes.
That she was poor.
Right. And I mean, she's washing them in the bathtub, the same one she has to take a bath.
Yeah, they don't have laundry. And their bathtub.
What? Then the asshole girls in gym class.
Right. And then the bathroom, like they don't really have a bathroom. It's like a part of the kitchen. And there was a curtain.
But there was a curtain down
to block the bathtub so you'd have privacy, but he took it down before Eleanor moved back in.
Dick. Period.
How as a mom do you... I can't.
I don't know.
Let's move on. All right.
Preservation.
I guess, but to me, you put your kids first.
Right.
You preserve the life you created.
That's a whole nother topic.
Right. All right. Park has a completely different home life than Eleanor. His parents openly express love to each other regularly, and Park and his brother are well cared for. Do you think that's what drew Eleanor to him?
No.
No?
I think it was the kindness. He was the first person that was kind to, I mean, he begrudgingly was kind to her at first.
Right.
And then, like, he even took, like, baby steps. First, he just let her read over his shoulder. Then he let her borrow the comics. Then it just, then it was the headphones. And it was just this gradual thing where he just was just slowly warming up to her. And I think it was about him, and it wasn't the home life.
My favorite thing he does for her early on is that he asks his grandmother for batteries for his birthday.
Yes.
And that's what he asked for his birthday so he could give them to Eleanor. Oh my gosh.
It's super sweet. It's super sweet.
It's amazing.
It's super sweet.
He didn't really understand why she took the batteries. Like, he was like, that girl's weird. Why didn't she just take the Walkman? But she had a Walkman. She didn't have batteries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Very sweet.
So I think it was combination of the fact that he was nice to her and they started to, kind of like each other together. But I do think her being a part of the family, of his family, like being in that presence, I think that was attractive to her because it was stable and it wasn't.
Right. Having that feeling of stability when your world is chaotic is lovely.
Right. Right. I mean, it reminds me of like, to a lesser extent, when Tom and I were talking about like getting married, right?
Yeah.
So we're still dating and talking about getting married. Like I told him, like, to me, I come from a divorced family. My mom has been divorced several times. My grandparents are really the only people that ever stayed together. Like everybody gets divorced. And I just don't want that for my life. So if we're in it forever. Whatever it takes, therapy, whatever, we're in it together. Whereas Tom's parents have been married forever and his grandparents were married forever, both sets of grandparents. And so like to him, that's just normal. Yeah, that's what you do. You
Right.
get married and you're together forever. So to me, like that's how I relate to it. Like it's like, oh, well, that's really attractive that you have that thing that I always wanted, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. I was really surprised when we start to get to know his parents, and they see like she's getting comfortable, and like, you know, and his dad has that whole conversation with her about having dinner at the house, and I don't know. I expected more as a person that had served and like that Marine. I got Marine vibes. They never say what branch he was in, but I got Marine vibes.
I think you're right. They don't say. But you know what? You know what, though, Molly? I think it's the code of that neighborhood.
Right.
You don't inform on other people in the neighborhood. Because, like, later in the book, when Eleanor is running away...
nobody says anything.
Well, Tina actually invites her in after this girl has bullied her relentlessly this whole book.
But she can see the panic on her face.
And then they start talking about fucking stepdads. Right? So that, to me, tells me Tina's
got a shit life too, man.
Who knows what sort of abuse she was subjected to, but it almost sounds like her stepdad was trying to touch her or did touch her and was not cool. And so, like, it's the code of that neighborhood, right?
Right.
And in a lot of ways, it's the code of poverty.
Right.
You don't inform on your neighbors.
I was actually just going to say about that. It really is about income in that moment, right? Because, like, even though Park's father and mother have more money than the rest of the area, they're still from that neighborhood.
Right.
But he said very early, he grew up in that neighborhood.
Right.
He grew up with the stepdad. He knows that guy. He knows what he's like. I don't know.
Right. Well,
it's shit. It's shit.
Why do you think Park was initially reluctant to claim Eleanor, even though he clearly had feelings for her?
Oh, I truly think he's already feels like an outsider. And
I mean, he was the only kid that wasn't white, right? There were very few kids of color in their school in general.
Yep. So he already sticks out like a sore thumb. And I don't mean that to be like rude or disrespectful. It's the 80s and he's biracial and not like African American, what is more seen in the South, but Korean, which you don't see many Koreans or people of Asian descent at all there.
And they're not really, I mean, they're in Oklahoma.
So,
right. So
I honestly think he didn't want another target on his back. He didn't want a bigger target.
Absolutely.
He was already like the object of bullying.
Right.
Why bring more trouble on yourself?
And I'm not even sure, like, I'm not sure he wouldn't behave that way even if Eleanor weren't like weird and dressed weird. Like, I think he would still feel uncomfortable claiming anyone because...
Well, she was still a new girl. Oh, you had to date the new girl. That would have been a thing, right? Like, there would always be something, right?
And it doesn't seem like Park was necessarily popular, but like he also didn't want to toe out a line. Like, just stay on line, you know.
He was invisible. And invisible is what if
sometimes
you are
that's desirable.
I know. I was the weird kid.
Right.
Being the weird kid and being invisible is a lot better than being the weird kid and being the object of their freaking attraction.
Right. Yeah. But and he even was like that with his own parents and his grandparents. He was like, "No, I'm not dating her. She's not my girlfriend."
Well, and I feel like he seems like somebody that's just treading water till he can get out of there and move on to the next stage in life. Like, he is just holding out till he can leave, right?
Yeah.
And having someone, be it Eleanor, his brother, his parents, and holding attachments keeps him there.
Right. Yeah. All right. Park has kissed other girls. He has held hands with other girls, but Eleanor is completely different for him. To me, this is Rainbow talking about the difference between being young and quote unquote going out and first loves. So I thought it might be fun to talk about our first loves.
Okay.
So who was your first love?
My high school sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Blackwell. We dated from my freshman year till the end of end of my junior year.
Wow.
Yeah, we were together a long time. When he graduated, he was a year older than me. When he graduated, he was happy staying in town. And I knew going into my senior year, I had to get out of there. I couldn't stay. And I mean, for a mid of reasons, I needed to see something outside of Nichols. And I knew as much as Brian loved me and as much as I loved him, we were going to want different things in a year's time.
Yeah.
And that just put us on different paths. He's living a great life. He's super happy now. He has a beautiful daughter and a wonderful wife. We talk to each other, we text each other and message each other on our birthdays. And
that's weird.
No, because we were friends first. I was his friend before anything else. And I've said it before. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Relationships need to be based on friendship. Period.
I agree. Although Tom and I were not friends.
Well, that was different. You guys met online.
We met through an algorithm.
Right. But if you are dating somebody that you know in real life, if you don't have a friendship base, there's nothing to hold the relationship together. So having a friendship with somebody that you already had a friendship with doesn't seem weird to me.
Yeah, I guess.
And I honestly can say 100%, unless something extreme happens and Matthew and I, God forbid, ever divorce, I know he will be my friend. I'm just
too bitter to still be friends with us.
Oh, no. If Matthew did something to scorn me, oh, you bet your sweet bippy. But if it was amicable and it was a joint agreement and nothing fishy was going on, life happens.
No.
What about you?
My first love would be Adam Diener, who we started dating right before my sophomore year. During band camp season. We were both in marching band together, and we also were in the same youth group at church.
Wait, what did he play?
He played trumpet, of course.
And what did you play?
Mellophone, marching French horn. He was really good too. He actually pursued music professionally, not trumpet, but he works in sound engineering essentially.
Cool.
But he and I were at I was best friends with his sister, so it was kind of messy when we first started dating. But
yeah, I bet.
But we dated for a year and a half, and he was really my first boyfriend. Outside of elementary school, when Adam and Tuda and I would hang out at each other's house, and he would give me cards that said "I like you, go Browns." So we dated for a year and a half. We broke up for terrible reasons, and it was very hurtful. So I'm not going to go into them, but he was also a senior when we broke up, and I was a junior. And so it probably wouldn't have worked out after that anyway. But when I don't have a huge dating history, I have had 3 significant relationships in my life.
I've been dating since the 7th grade. So.
Before Tom. Since before Tom.
Sorry, Mom.
Well, I mean, it's not that I wasn't dating. It's that I didn't really have relationships. I had 3 significant relationships before Tom. And Adam was the first one. And when I met Tom, and I fell in love with him very quickly, I started to realize that what I felt for those other guys wasn't really love. It's not lust either. It's some sort of weird thing that you feel as high schoolers that you think is love, but you're not really capable of understanding the depths of it.
And
that's not to say people can't marry their high school sweetheart. I mean, I definitely
no, absolutely
people can, and they can be very happy. My best friend is married to her high school sweetheart.
That's amazing.
But for me, what I felt for them was flirtatious and butterflies and juvenile. And what I feel for Tom, I mean, not that it didn't start as butterflies and flirtation, but it's so solid now. Like when he walks into a room and he's looking hot that day, I'm not going to say I don't get butterflies, but they're different. They feel different. Like it feels like
it's a warmth. It's a joy.
Yeah. It's not, it's something solid. Butterflies could go away at any point in time, right? But I feel something solid now.
Right. When I read this question, I thought about this for a while, about who was my first love, because there was another boy, but the more I thought about him, his name was Stephen Cox. Stephen passed away. I'm gonna try not to cry. Stephen committed suicide a couple years ago, and we were really good friends off and on our whole childhood. But what I had with Stephen in middle school, when he was an 8th grader and I was a 7th grader, so the older boys. But Stephen was puppy love, right? He came off as a bad boy. We knew nothing about each other. We didn't talk outside of the bus or in school.
Right.
It was it felt secretive, and I think that was part of the draw of it, right? And he was moody and broody, and didn't talk to a lot of people, and I mean that is what drew me into Stephen. And I mean, we talked and we got to know each other, but it wasn't the solid, heart-filling thing that I had with Brian,
Right.
And I mean, but I will always say Stephen was my first boyfriend.
Right. Right. I mean, Adam was a good first boyfriend. He was a good first love, good high school sweetheart. I mean, he was a really good guy, and we had so much in common because we were in band together and youth group together. We just had a lot in common. He played basketball. I played softball. He stopped playing basketball after his junior year, but and then we did pep band together. So we were together a lot. We were a really good fit.
Things just lined up, right?
He was 6'7", so he started my love of very tall men. My husband is only an inch taller than me. On a good day, he's shrinking. But I actually...
He makes this too, but if you tell that to his face, he calls you a liar.
But I actually prefer being able to look him in the eye. It's really nice. It's nice. All right. Anyway, Eleanor has a lot of bullies in her life, including Tina, and a mysterious person writing disgusting things on her books. Were you surprised to learn the person writing the notes was Eleanor's stepdad, Richie?
Yes and no. I knew he was skeezy. I knew he was abusive. I knew he was, like, when she walks in home for the first time after being kicked out and she sees her sister on his lap and the tone and the feeling she gets from it, the unease she has, I go, oh my God, get that child off. I didn't know anything about this man, and I was like, get that child off his lap. So I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. Like, I didn't want to be right about him.
Right.
Because they already have enough going on.
Yeah.
But, like...
Well, we don't actually hear that he
it's insinuated,
them,
right?
But there's a part where it's like Eleanor mentions that he looks at her like that he will eventually just
it's just a matter of time,
right? It's just a matter of time.
He's gonna get bored one day
and just decide
beating her mother and just come for her,
right?
And that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Disgusting. I was surprised it was him because I just didn't the book was leaning that it was Tina or one of Tina's gang, but he does say to her when she comes back from hanging out with Park one day at the school steps or whatever, he says nothing but a bitch in heat.
Yeah.
And if you can say that to someone,
a
16-year-old girl,
a child,
a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Disgusting. What a horrible human being.
Trash can.
Yeah.
Trash can.
All right, let's talk about the ending. There are some key things that stick out to me. Park's dad helps them leave. Eleanor comes back outside even when she said she wouldn't. And the postcard she sends at the end. So here's my first question. What are your thoughts on the ending?
It was okay for me. Now I'm insinuating because it was left open-ended. For me, I assumed based off their relationship, it was Eleanor just telling him he's fine and that it's pretty much a goodbye, right? That he doesn't have to worry anymore. He doesn't have to wait anymore. He needs to move on with his life.
Are you talking about the ending or the postcard? Because I'm just talking
the
about
postcard.
the ending.
I
was talking about the ending in general because I'm going to talk about the postcard next.
Okay, so I like the ending. I like that she got to escape. I like that he helped. I love that his dad helped.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful.
It was very sweet. I cried when he came out.
I mean, I did too. I mean, he could have very easily.
He's like, "Do you have enough cash?" As soon as he goes, "Do you have enough cash?" I start sobbing and I go, "Oh my god!" He goes, "Take the truck; it has more fuel."
Well, he also made him take the truck so he could prove he could drive stick,
which we always knew he could.
Right.
But when your dad's yelling at you, put it in second. Put it in second.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like that moment of when Park realizes his dad is on his side when he hasn't been certain, because the whole book he feels like
he's an outsider in his home. Yeah.
Right. He worries that not worries, but he wonders if he's gay. He wonders if he's too feminine. He feels like his dad doesn't like him as well because he's more feminine.
Right. Because he likes hanging out with his mom and he wears the eyeliner and
yeah. So to have his dad be like, "You're going to save that girl, go do it. Like, do it," instead of saying, take her back home or we'll call the police. Right. Although he does say if he's touched her, we're calling the police. Like, we're not.
Right.
So I also thought it was great that when she got to the aunt and uncle's house, it wasn't, "What the fuck are you doing here?" It was,
"Oh my God,
we got to get all of them. We've got to get all of them out of that situation."
Well, and like her aunt's reaction, as soon as she saw Eleanor, she knew it got bad, right? As soon as she realized that Eleanor found a way to make it there, she just looked at her husband and goes, "We need to get your nieces and nephews."
Right. And we don't know what prompted them to invite her there for the summer anyway, but I kind of feel like they already knew something was going on.
I honestly, my feeling is siblings, we have this bond. Even when we don't say it over the phone, you can sense when your sister or brother is hurting.
Right.
And he probably called his sister one day and could hear that she was either crying or struggling. And she's like, and he goes, "So what else has been going on?" And, maybe she went, "Eleanor." And he was like, "Oh, maybe she'll come out for the summer. And there's this thing." And like...
I have a very strange feeling that Eleanor's mom wrote to him and said, "I need you to figure out something to do for her. This is not a safe space."
Right. And it just feels like...
I want to believe that her mom would do that for her.
I mean, she did get her out once. She did find her a safe space once.
Right. But then you brought her back and let him take down the shower curtain. It's disgusting.
You work with what you got, I guess. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I cannot say what I would do. You know what I mean? Because while I have had my fair share of trauma, and we've talked about this on the pod, I cannot tell you what I would do if my life and my children's lives were on the line. I know what I think I would do, but until I'm in that situation, I can't say for certain what I would or wouldn't do, I would hope I would not stay with the man that's abusing me and looking at my daughter that way.
I couldn't let that happen. There's no way. But I did like the ending. I thought it was really fast paced compared to the rest of the book. And
but because it was giving you a sense of urgency, right?
It was, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, you feel that. Like, the rest of the book is that falling in love, which does sometimes take time,
Right.
And then it's the urgency of the escape.
And then all of a sudden, it's that last part of the marathon. You're sprinting at this point. You have to get to the finish line.
Right. And I do think that they had sex in the truck. Like, it's implied that they did something.
Yeah.
But there is, maybe they didn't actually have sex, but I'm pretty sure they did.
I'm pretty sure they did.
And Yeah. Okay, so my second question, what do you think was on the postcard she sent him?
Um,
3 words.
3 words.
That's what it said. There were 3 words on the postcard.
I love you.
Oh.
God bless you. Because like she never says it, right? If I'm remembering correctly, she never says I love you, even though Park does.
Park says it, she doesn't.
I think it's just I love you.
So I mean, I probably, when I read it the first time, I love you was definitely what I was thinking it was. Even I miss you, something like that. But then after seeing Gilmore Girls Netflix edition,
yeah, oh yeah,
and the final words are "I'm pregnant."
You think it's something that related?
It could have been it's a girl, it's a boy, we have a baby. It could have been any of those things. I still want to believe that it's I love you or I miss you. But they do talk about, he's like, I don't want you to get pregnant. She's like, I don't care.
Right.
So it could be that.
I don't know.
I want it to be I love you. And I want them to have,
I love you.
And I want them to have a chance to get back together as they get older and are both in safe spaces. But it feels unrealistic to me.
It does.
Like, I'm actually glad that Rainbow Rowell hasn't written a sequel. I want a sequel to Fangirl. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I want a sequel to Fangirl.
Rainbow, you hear us?
We want that. Stop writing Simon Snow and give us
real. For fuck's sake.
Stop writing Simon Snow and give us more Kath and Levi. Like,
for God's sakes, please.
But I don't want a sequel to Eleanor Park because I want that story to be.
I like it being open-ended, and I feel like you would really divide the fandom at this point.
Yeah, and I feel like it's more realistic. High schoolers don't usually stay together, and they're in different states, and
especially in the 80s, like long distance charging was a thing.
Right. I mean, didn't we talked about in The Wedding Date what it was like to have a long distance relationship? Imagine that being in the 80s, like crazy.
No, hard pass.
Right. No, thank you. But also, she's healing from her trauma, and that's going to be a process that she needs to do.
And I mean, like, getting to be with her siblings and not living in fear and getting to shower every day without worrying about somebody walking in and like having a normal sense of life is what that girl needed at the end of that book.
Period. And I mean, we're just making the assumption that her siblings and mom are with her, but
I would hope so.
We definitely know they're out of that house by the end of the book.
Right, because like he's driving drunk and
and Park goes by the house and notices that there's no toys there anymore. So
I really wanted him to kick his ass.
Oh my gosh, I was hoping. Do that crazy jujitsu kick that he did on the other guy, like I wanted that. I wanted all Karate Kid, like crane. Ooh. Yeah, that's what I wanted. All right, so this book. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, it's nothing.
This book is full of quotes that I love. Did you have any favorites? I have a few, but I was wondering if you had any favorites.
I don't think I do.
So my favorites are Eleanor was right. She never looked nice. She looked like art, and art wasn't supposed to look nice. It was supposed to make you feel something. Ah.
I like that.
Oh!
I like that.
And you look like a protagonist. She was talking as fast as she could think. You look like the person who wins in the end. You're so pretty and so good. You have magic eyes, she whispered.
That is good. That's good, too.
And this one, I just want to break that song into pieces and love all of them to death.
Oh, that's good, too.
That's what I remembered about this book, was those things that made me feel something, you know?
Right, feel love and, not the trauma of it.
Not the trauma.
No, and when I talk about this book, or I would recommend this book, I would talk about the love story first, and then the trauma. Mm-hmm. It's like there's an A and B storyline. While the B storyline is just as important as the A storyline, I'm just going to focus on that one because it's a lot easier to deal with.
And I think my brain blocked out the trauma.
No, never. Brains don't do that.
We don't need that part of the story. So last question. This setting isn't the typical modern day. So what do you think about this? It's set in 1980. What did I say? 86. So what do you think? How does this help the story?
I really like it. And for a myriad of reasons. You're getting the good music. We're
great music.
Great music. You're getting like they talk about TV and the movies, and the vehicles, right? And I lost my train of thought. Shit. But what I like about it is most YA romance like this are set in modern day.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And taking it back just a smidge, it gives it a whole different sense of time and place, literally and metaphorically, right? You can literally detach yourself from modern day and go back in time. And it gives the characters... It takes away modern convenience in the story, right?
Absolutely.
There's no texting. There's...
Absolutely.
I mean, making a phone call. She had to go to her dad's house for a phone call.
Yeah, they didn't even have a phone. Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's just... changing it just a little bit. I mean, it's not a massive change where I had to take a second and, like, I texted you when I was like 5 chapters in. I was like, is this in the 80s?
I was like, it literally says that on the first page.
And then I'm like, I'm listening to the audiobook, and you're like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I was like, oh. But it took me that little time while listening to the audiobook to notice that subtle change. And it made me like the story more.
Yeah.
What about you?
I liked the change. It felt, authentic to me, I guess. Rainbow Rowell was born in 1973, so she wouldn't have quite been a teenager when this book came out. But
I was 3. It was
right. Right.
In 86.
Right. I was 5. But I don't know Rainbow Rowell's life. I don't know if she experienced trauma as a kid. God, I hope not. I really hope not.
I hope not.
But she's...
If you want to come on and talk about it, we will, Rainbow.
Oh my gosh, we would love it. We'll even steer clear of personal questions if you don't want to talk about that, but we will just love to talk to you because, oh my gosh.
Period. But not Simon Snow. Don't fucking bring us Simon Snow, for the love of God.
I tried. I listened to like an hour of the audiobook and I was like, I can't. This is like Harry Potter and I can't.
No, it's not even Harry Potter because it irritated me in Fangirl. Moving on.
Anyway, I feel like
stop that.
I feel like she's writing from an authentic place. I feel like she's writing a trauma that she witnessed, or at least she's setting it in a time and a place that is comfortable to her.
Right.
And I have to say, technically that makes this book historical fiction, and I like it.
You're like, are you counting it as historical fiction?
Well, I not for our challenge. I counted it as realistic fiction, but yeah, is historical fiction on our challenge? Not relevant to this pod.
Not relevant.
But anyway, it's technically historical fiction since it takes place in the 80s.
And it is 2022.
And I think the book is beautiful. It's well written.
It is beautiful.
It's words that stay with you. I mean, I want to break it into pieces and love all of them. Right.
It's I don't know how something can be so beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time.
Oh my gosh. It's like Up. It's like the movie Up. You are so fucking broken after the first 5 minutes of that movie.
Right. Like, and every time in this book, every time you think Eleanor is going to get a break, she spends time with Park and she's at his house and they're just listening to music or whatever. Right. And then she has to go back to, like, it's a break from her reality. And every time she has to go back to her real world, it just demolishes you all over again because you're like, oh yeah, shit.
But
she literally lives in a war zone.
It's so real to what she was experiencing. We're experiencing that with her. She's at Park's house. She's safe. She's comfortable. Now she's back in the place that's traumatizing.
Yep. And that's so realistic for so many people.
100%.
Even today, it is
100%.
awful. And you know what? I'm gonna put domestic abuse hotlines in the notes. I'm gonna family trauma, links for CPS, all that jazz. If you know someone or you are facing this type of situation yourself, you do not have to be in it. There are people and programs.
Right.
Hell, email us. We will call the cops. I don't care.
We will. I 100% support see something, say something. 100%.
Yes.
And as a teacher, it is my job to report these things. Like,
it's not my job, but fucking see something, come fight me. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think going back to your point about the modern, having it set in modern times, I do think things are reported more frequently now than they were in the 80s.
Well, and like Park would have been on his phone with his ear pods in, and he would have never been reading his comics, or if he was reading his comics, he would have had earbuds in, and he would have been flipping through the comic, and he would have never acknowledged her. She would have sat down in the seat while he was sitting against the window, and none of this shit would have happened.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, it was written in 2012, so that wasn't happening as frequently as it is in 2022 either.
Right.
But anyway, anything else you want to talk about, or can I share what we're going to do next week?
Let's talk about next week.
Next week, we are reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue,
which I haven't started yet.
E. Schwab. And I finished it, and Molly hasn't read it, so
which is odd for us, being
I have the special edition of this as well.
It's beautiful.
So I'll show off some of that when we do this next week.
It is my genre,
and Molly will be hosting.
I gotta read it.
And then the following week, we will have on Chezzy. Francesca Zappia will be here on the pod to talk about her newest book,
Chezzy
Yammer. And we're
going to talk all things books. We're going to talk that
all
book.
Things, yeah.
We're going to talk about writing. We're going to talk about
Eliza. And we're going to talk about Monstrous Sea, because Chezzy has things.
If you have Chezzy questions, email us at bookbesties@.
Try again.
Email us oh my god. Email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com.
Right. We're also on social media. You can DM us on Twitter. We don't use our Twitter as much.
Not Twitter.
Don't DM us on Twitter. Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We're on Twitter, but we never fucking use it, so don't DM us there. I
mean, if we'll see it in a couple months, and that's that.
Yeah,
in a couple months.
But if you want to ask Chezzy questions, we are currently working on our question list for her. We are very excited to have her as our first author guest.
Can't wait to talk to her more about writing. That was so fun.
Yes, I can't wait to talk to her more about Monstrous Sea, because
so many questions unanswered.
Exactly, 100%. And follow her on social media too. Seriously. She is on TikTok and Instagram. She posts some great videos of her artwork.
She was talking about Pokemon this past week.
I know, and I was like mind blown. Anyway, so that's what we've got coming up for the next 2 weeks. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is all over the socials, and Cats and Yammer. But more importantly, we have Francesca Zappia. Chezzy. We have her. Chezzy. Check out social media for what else is coming up. We post a month ahead what we're doing, and you can check out what we're doing in March.
If you are new to the pod, we recently have posted a carousel about where to start and what to see.
Yes. And go check those out, because we're still growing, which is awesome. Definitely think
share us with everybody you know.
Yeah, for sure.
For realsies, yo.
100%.
All right, that's it. We're over an hour.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of Molly and April, not those of anyone else. Today's book was Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins. Editing by Thomas Watkins. And music is Sleep Sweetly by Prigida. Don't forget to follow Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. If you'd like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com. If you or someone you know is in an unsafe environment and in need of help, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. They even have a chat feature on their website, www.nvvh.org. www.thehotline.org.